أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه أجمعين يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من ناس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبعث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ويطيع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم Welcome to you, all praise for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Praise Him. We seek His assistance and we seek His forgiveness. We seek gradually with Allah for even ourselves, not of our own wicked deeds. We serve Allah gods. None can miss God. We serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not God. There's no God protected for them. I've been witness and none has already worshipped except for Allah. And then Muhammad and the law sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the last time the message of mankind. Oh, you believe, fear Allah, you should be feared, you not die except as a Muslim. O mankind, revere your Lord who created you from a single soul, and then created from its mate, and then from them both he created many women. And fear Allah to whom you demanded equal right. Do not call the ties of kinship in the womb that bore you, for verily Allah is watching over you. Or you will believe, fear Allah, and say a word that is straightforward and truthful. He will guide you the right to action. When you feel the forgive your sins, when you tell Allah, whoever obeys Allah and His messenger, they are indeed the successful. Inshallah, first let me apologize for my tardiness, and I won't make any excuses about it. Some things are out of my control. I didn't do anything. It was the other. But, you know, you make decisions to do things on certain paths. I went where I should have went. Out of my ordinary, I ended up jammed up. So national could have been worse. But alhamdulillah, it wasn't. But I'm here on time, really, because it's the color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whoever is here is supposed to be here. Whoever could be here is the ones that are supposed to be here to hear this. And inshallah ta'ala, I hope that it will be something that's beneficial, as it has been for me in my life, because whatever I have or whatever comes to me, I always want to share with my brothers and sisters, because we all have a right to that, to this type of knowledge, and to know these things. And we don't know that. Sometimes you never know who this thing is for. You may be walking around 20, 30, 40 years of your life to say one word to someone, and then from that one word, somebody's got it. I had a brother come to me 1 week. I think I came here. I think I ain't seen this brother in years. A brother came to me and said, "You don't remember me?" And he said to me that one time you was giving a khutbah, and he said afterwards, you pointed to me and you said you wanted to talk to me about something or whatever. He ended up taking the shahada. Didn't remember this, brother. I don't even remember the conversation, but I remember him taking the shahada. But I couldn't remember the context of what happened. So I was curious to know what was it, because he said he came in, he wasn't even Muslim. He just stopped in, and he just happened to sit for the khutbah, for Jumu'ah. And whatever it was, he took the shahada that day. So I don't know what led him up to that or whatever. I never got the specifics to it, but mashallah. And the brother's still Muslim, you know. So today, inshallah ta'ala, because I don't want to take up a lot of time, because I already went too far, but this is so important. It's so important for many different reasons, and I want to try to be as terse as possible without losing any of the meat or the substance to what it is that I'm going to speak about. Two words, two English words, right? No, I don't know the Arabic for these words. I just know them in English. Two English words. Perception and perspective. Perception and perspective. Sometimes mostly used interchangeably, which you kind of can. But for the sake of the way that I've understood it, and the way that I will want to use it today, is I'll give you some examples. So I'll begin with perspective. Now, perspective has a dual meaning, and this is what I'm giving you my meaning, right? Because this is arguably throughout, with people, they argue about this all the time. So one example I'll give you first is that when they have perspective and perception, they have this picture where two men are standing, or these two figures are standing, and there's these three lines in the room, right? These three lines down. Depending on how you look at it, you'll count the lines, you'll count four from one side or the other. One side sees three, the other side sees four. Or you'll see how, you look at the number 9 and the number 6. Depending on where a person is standing, right? They'll see a 6, the other one will see a 9. Who's correct, right? Now, perspective, the way that I'm using it, and for us to understand it today, so perspective is a vantage point, a point of which you can see something, right? So for instance, it's as where you're standing, right? But also consider that where you're standing could be how you think. Now, perception is how you evaluate your perspective. The point at which you understand something is going to be how you perceive it, how you see something to be. Now, so you got through all of that, right? One thing that's important, right? Because nobody knows your history better than you. You all. We all have a history. Now, when you consider the developmental nature of your iman, right, throughout your life, all of this has been a matter of perspective and perception. So when you ask, okay, you ask yourself, why this, why that, not as far as things that happen inside your life, but no, your own personal motivations and what you've done with your deed. Nobody knows what you do with your deed except for you. This is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the true nature or the true amount of your sincerity in any of this, you truly know what that is. For instance, when you consider that, if everything depended on something, you would have a different perspective to look at things. You would perceive them differently. For instance, you don't go to work, you don't have any income coming in, somebody's not going to eat. So you have a different outlook on these things. There's a difference that comes in this. right? So you know, okay, if I don't go to work, I don't get a check, if I don't open the shop, I don't, all these I don't. So that means the way that you look at your business, the way that you look at how you seek out your livelihood, this is how you perceive things because of where you stand on a certain understanding. And the same thing applies to our deen, right? We say that, when we read the ayat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He gives us this, He makes us stand strong on the word that is strong, right? This is Islam. And this is something specific for certain kinds of people. These are certain believers that have this thing. It's the Qamah Fiddin, right? We say, oh no, I'm standing like, 10 toes down, everything else. But what about everything else? We say Ma'bud, Ibad, Abdullah, Amatullah. What does this really mean? When you translate it, we say slaves of Allah, worship, right? From this is Ma'bud. It's more a slave. Don't think of slavehood in the sense of what we understand the right way. But it's not like that. When you truly look at the essence of it, Ma'bud, it means a certain type of adoration. It's adoration. So towards a person, what he actually do, you do it. When people go to their extremes and these things and their relationships between a man and a woman, they have this certain kind of adoration. But their adoration because of the way it makes them feel. A person makes them feel. They feel love. They feel respect for this woman. So this isn't, it's not bad, but when you go that, when that ma'bud is above the ma'bud shabu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, becomes. But now it's the highest point of that nature, this ma'bud to Allah, the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or what He encourages us to do, or what He loves, right? Because if your wife or your child or anybody else loves something, you try to make sure you bring them special sweets, right? You try to make sure you bring them flowers, or you buy these certain type of fabrics and all these different kind of things. This is love. When it comes to Tawheed, Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is the true essence of that? The true essence of it is that you know that this is only for Allah. You get offended. You are genuinely offended. It does something in your heart when you hear some type of shirky type of word or saying, you see it, you're like, oh man, look at it, it's just shirt. You're affected by it. But if it has no effect on you, then something's wrong with your iman. That you would consider that somebody will have some love and devotion for somebody else other than your beloved, who's the only one to be beloved, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're disgusted by shirk. You're disgusted by kufr. But it's all a matter on how your perspective and how you perceive it. You're not standing on nothing. You're not standing from the right vantage point. Then how are you going to be able to see these things for what they truly are? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this is important. Now, this is where things get a little bit personal and a little bit tricky. And I ask you, as I've already asked myself, is that our fathers, our mothers, our teachers, our educators, right? Because sometimes this is what they know. Nobody really explained to us, because there's some things that have to be decimated for people have to break these things down so that we can truly genuinely understand. And sometimes in terms of that's relative to what we can understand, versus people speaking up here, when up there, you need to bring me up there. So a lot of these things that somebody's talking about, but this might not be in a language as far as being out of English, but I mean, they don't talk this way. So if we're talking in a class and somebody takes from a book, not really from their understanding, but they just take right verbatim from the book and not being able, because every teacher isn't able to always relate to their students. This is a common problem with people that teach sometimes. Not that they don't know how to teach, they just don't know how to relate or relate the information and give it to everybody the certain kind of way that they need it. Because every individual, not that they have learning disabilities, they have ways that they learn. They got ways that they remember. They got videos that you gotta understand. A great teacher know how to pull those things out of their students and to bring those things to those students so they be like, man, I got it. I understand. Who can speak to a wide enough audience and give everybody exactly what they need. And then everybody has a clear understanding on the same thing when they come out. And when they have a conversation about it, they all on point. Everybody's on point. So, like I say, not making excuses for anybody, right? Because some of us made mistakes as parents. We made a whole bunch of mistakes. And one of the things that's happening, in these times that we have today, is that you have, I've never in my life ever blamed my mother or my father for anything that happened to me in my life, or the way that the decisions, because I made some poor decisions with my education, or I made some poor decisions because I thought I knew this and that, or I went and did this and that. Like, I never blamed them and said, oh, you should have done this more, or y'all should have done this. Like, huh? But this is what this generation does. It's your fault I'm like this. Like, are you kidding me? It's my fault that you're like this. How long are you going to keep me running that story? Like, you're going to be 50 years old saying my mom and my dad, what? But this is this sickness that's going on right now. They're pointing the finger back at them. And then even people say, oh, they misled us. They told us the wrong thing. They didn't tell us the truth. Right? This is what people do. They play this blame game. We do this blame game thing. And this sickness it's a legislative sickness that now has reached our children and these younger generations. This is what they're coming up at. Nobody blames themselves. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. So if you have that way of thinking, then that's a serious issue. And you gotta say, well, where did they get this from? Where did this come from? This, it's my mother and my father's fault that I didn't make it. And then it creates this arrogance, and it creates this type of hatred towards, those generations. And people do this. It gotta be your mother and father. Because I say mother and father, I'm generally speaking about everybody, every elder in every community. It's like, this is the reason why you try to tell somebody young something. They look at you like, you're the worst thing in the world. Like, who you is to be talking to me? Who you are to be showing concern for me? Who are you to be trying to tell me that, you've been around here 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, but, who are you to be telling me something about what's going on today? What? There's no respect. There's this great disconnect when it comes to that, because it's a matter of how they look at, they don't respect it. It creates a perception of things. It's like, we're not your enemies, we're not against you. We're for you more than you know. We realize we made a lot of mistakes. Hopefully you can learn that not to make the mistakes that we made. We want everything that's better and great for you. We want you to have a way better life than we ever could offer you. We want everything to be better for you so that our grandchildren and our great-grands and everybody else is going to be after us is going to be in a better situation. We just hope that we leave something behind that is better than what we were given. Because we weren't given, like you said, this is a hand we was dealt, we played it. And we're going to keep playing this hand. We're not complaining about the dealer. They only had the cards that they was given. So a lot of the ignorance for people that reverted or converted, however you want to say, they came to the sun, a lot of the ignorance that family members in our, had, that's all they had. That's all they had. And if we can't find and pick apart the best of what they had, and then we don't take because like now we inherited a whole lineage of believers now, once we became Muslim. Our mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, whoever, whatever you want to call, these are our people. These are our examples. This is our history for us to take from. But those best parts of whatever they had, we need to take those and then you move from that and say, you know what? Let me make dua for my mother and sister. Let me make dua for my mother and father. Let me make dua for them. That Allah subhanahu forgives them for whatever ignorance they had. So a lot of times, this is what happens, and you get blamed for education, right? You didn't teach me this in Islam. No, you wasn't listening. You wasn't listening. You didn't listen. You didn't listen. Oh, you came to class unprepared. You can't make a student be a student. How does that work? That's like you got many examples. Give one example. You can't make a good worker be a good worker, right? A bad worker, he's just bad. He always going to be lazy, he or she, because that's how they are. You can't make a person in the second. It's like let's say, in boxing. I hate to use this example, but I love boxing. You can't make a great fighter is always going to be a great fighter. Day one, it was just in them to be a fighter. And the average fighter, you can't make them be a knockout artist or a technician in the ring. No matter what you give them basic fundamentals, you can't make them into that. Sometimes, we think that we can, make somebody something. But anyway, so now, when you think about perspective, and what I was alluding to and getting to is that when we were taught. So in the beginning of a lot of our Islam, on the time when we started truly learning about Islam, we were taught about Tawheed. But we're not taught about Tawheed. We're taught about Tawheed and all these other civic Islam, all these things we're taught about. And we learn, which is very important, to have an understanding about these things and to know where we should be standing and looking at the world from. Because this is our worldview. Our perspective creates our perception, and this is our worldview. We have a worldview as Muslims. How we look at the dunya, how we look at the akhirah, how we look at our deeds and actions, how we look at everything in our daily lives is how we process it and how we live our lives. This is what cultivates and creates that for us, right? So from these teachers, from these different teachers and things that we've learned and carried on, we've learned this, but we didn't learn beyond, let's just say, I'll coin the term definitionism, right? We learn the definition. I know Tawheed means this, aspects of al-Rubiyyah, al-Ibadah, al-Asma' al-Wasifa, and then we don't do that. But the how of how you affirm your Tawheed is something different. Like, what does that do inside your life? What has that done to change your life? How does Tawheed make you feel? Nobody ever asked you that? Not this one. I'm not asking you what it is, but how does it make you feel? What does that motivate you to do? What have you written inside your journal? You don't have a journal? Having a journal, having something to write down your thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very important. We have all these different works. When you see these different books of these different ulama of the past and of now, these are reflective. This is reflections. They sat down and thought about these things. Oh, you said, well, I don't really understand what reflection is, right? This dhikr or having this reflection, right? I'll just say, okay, be Surah Ar-Rahman. Allah teaches us how to reflect, what to reflect on, right? He drives us towards that so that we're able to grasp these things. One verse below we not deny. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all these things to think about, and you'll find many different works. One of the most beautiful works that I know I love a lot is Ibn al-Qayyim's Men in the Universe, where he sits back with all his reflections that you can take and expound on your own and go in and read about them, because this is what drives you towards that. But if you don't see any benefit in that, meaning that from where you're standing, there's a book there, and that you don't think that there's nothing beneficial inside that book. So you don't perceive it as anything, you won't read it. Like most of our Mus'haf or our Qur'ans or copies of the Qur'an. We won't read it. Or are we reading it? If we think there's something in there, well, how come we're not taking it from? Now, a few things. One thing is, like I said, if our worldview is based on us going to work, getting married, having children, raising our children, somewhat, right? And then, we die and we hope that we get the Jannah, right? If that's our view, then we need to really, there's more to it than just that. There's more to it than just working. Working is not your life. Some of us think that, having a job and work and saying, I did 80 hours. I did, 60 hours, this week. And this is what happens. Like, people brag about how many hours they work. You say, okay, well, you've done 60 hours. You've done 60 hours for the last 10, 15 years. You lost about 7, 8 years of your family. So there's a disconnect between you and your Zawj, you and your children. You've lost the boys. The boys are now teenagers. You're not their number one hero anymore. They found somebody else or something else because you were not there. But you paid all the bills. They never had to worry about food or drink or clothing and none of that. And you feel like this is successful. Far few and in between, did you sit down and did you read anything? Or did they, even if you were reading or doing something, you might not have been doing it with them because you were working overtime at the job. You let the job consume you. You let dunya consume you. And this is what happens. You lose something else. When it should be the opposite. We should be consumed by akhirah. Or also ta'ala, if we are more concerned with akhirah, also ta'ala will open the dunya up and give us even more. And if we're grateful for whatever little that we have, Allah will increase us in whatever we're grateful for. Whatever you are grateful for, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase you in that. He will make what little you have sufficient. He will make what little you have sufficient. There is a few things that I wish one of my illustrious teachers would have taught me at a very young age. And I'm just going to end with this because I'm already held you captive for too long. So a few things. So in the warning, in a Sahih Hadith, this is in Ibn Majah, Hadith number 4105. In this Hadith, that says that the Messenger also said that whoever is focused only on this world, Allah will confound his affairs and make him fear poverty constantly. Right? So whoever is focused only on this world, Allah will confound his affairs and make him fear poverty constantly. He's always worrying about the next hour. He's worrying about being poor. He's worrying about all these things, different things, right? Constantly. And he will not get anything of this world except what has been decreed for him. Whoever is focused on the hereafter, Allah will settle his affairs for him and make him feel content with his lot. And his provisions and worldly gains will undoubtedly come to him. Sahih. One of the terminologies that we learned very early on in Islam, we hear Sahih, we accept it, right? Sahih Hadith. Another hadith, Sahih Hadith, Allah says, O son of Adam, devote yourself to my worship, and I will fill your heart with contentment and take care of your poverty. But if you do not do that, then I will fill your heart with worldly concerns and will not take care of your poverty. Sahih Hadith. Concern yourself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over all your worldly concerns, and Allah will take care of everything. And last but not least, Because the most important thing that we should always remember as we came out today, seeking the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best way. Here's something that I recently discovered. This hadith is a sahih hadith, and it is narrated by Anas bin Malik that Allah said, whoever asks for paradise 3 times, whoever asks for paradise 3 times, a sahih hadith. If you don't leave with anything, I implore you to leave with this. Whoever asks for paradise 3 times, paradise will say, this is Jannah speaking. Jannah will say, oh Allah, admit him to paradise. Jannah makes dua for you when you ask for it. Again, whoever asks for Jannah 3 times, Jannah will say to Allah, oh Allah, admit him into paradise. Whoever asks for Jannah 3 times, Jannah will say, oh Allah, admit him to paradise. Jannah makes dua for you when you ask for him. And on the other hand, whoever asks to be saved from Jahannam 3 times, Jahannam asks Allah, Jahannam asks Allah, Jahannam asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save you from it. So, if you were not standing in the place before and not see the value of some of the things that we just brush over and read or go through, or how what we need to correct and reform, you're standing in a different place now. And I hopefully that your perspective is different. Now you're asking for Jannah. Why you should earnestly ask for Jannah? When you hear the hadith about that you should be firm in this, that you should be very firm in it. But whoever asks for Jannah 3 times, Jannah makes dua for you. Nobody never told me this. It was in a book. It was in that thing that got 2 covers on it. And also, if you ask to be saved from Jahannam 3 times, Jahannam makes dua for you. Sahih hadith. The hadith number is 4,340. It's in Sunnah Ibn Majah. 4,300. If you don't, you want to look it up, alhamdulillah, if you do due diligence, blew my mind. Nobody never told me that. Never heard it before. I guess I didn't pick the book up. And last but not least, in Sunnah Ibn Majah, hadith number 4,240, Abu Hurairah narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, take only as much as you can of the good deeds. Take only as much as you can of the good deeds. Take only as much as you can of the good deeds. Take only as much as you can of the good deeds. For the best of deeds is that which is done consistently, even if it's a little. So at the minimum, we have a different perspective. The most important thing for us to do is to at least ask for Jannah 3 times. Ask to be saved from the fire 3 times. This is a sahih hadith. So all the terminology, all the things that we learned over the years, this is the minimum. If this is the minimum that we can do, 3 and 3, 3 and 3, and be consistent at it, inshallah ta'ala, Allah will grant us Jannah and save us from the fire. And so on of how our perspective and what our perception is of these things. Inshallah ta'ala. Let's also give us our saints, past, present, future, open, and apparent. Let's also let Allah have mercy on our brothers and sisters preceding us in the Barzakh. Let's also let Allah to grant us al-Jannah al-Firdaus. May Allah subhanahu save us from the fire. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا